It was a cold December day in 1955 when a young Elvis Presley walked into Sun Records studio in Memphis, Tennessee to record some songs. He had recently been signed to Sun Records and was looking to make a name for himself in the growing rock and roll scene. Elvis was accompanied by guitarist Scotty Moore and bassist Bill Black. Together they would become known as the Blue Moon Boys. The session started off slowly, with the trio running through some country and pop standards to warm up. About an hour into recording, Elvis decided he wanted to try something a little more up-tempo. He recalled a recent hit by Carl Perkins called Blue Suede Shoes that had caught his ear. Elvis turned to Scotty and Bill and said, "Let's give that one a whirl," but they had never rehearsed or played the song together before. Scotty kicked the song off with his signature guitar riff and Elvis jumped right in enthusiastically singing the lyrics. Even through the scratchy recording equipment, it was clear there was something special happening. Elvis sang with such passion and energy that Scotty and Bill struggled to keep up with him at times. The young singer kept pace by tapping his foot hard on the wooden floor, creating a virtual drum track. After a few takes, the trio nailed the performance that would be released as a single by Sun Records. Blue Suede Shoes became Elvis's first big hit, selling over 20 million copies and reaching #1 on pop charts. Its success catapulted the 23-year-old to stardom, and he soon signed with RCA Records. The lyrics, written by Carl Perkins, told the story of a man pleading with his girlfriend not to step on his blue suede shoes. The mention of the shiny new shoes was a symbol of post-war middle-class prosperity and teenage fashion. Elvis's version kicked up the tempo and added a sense of wild energy and youthful rebellion. His unique rockabilly style blended country, gospel, and African-American blues influences. Parents and the older generation heard Blue Suede Shoes as dangerous and threatening, but young people connected with its excitement and made it a massive hit. Elvis soon adopted a flamboyant look to match his music: sideburns, popped collar, baggy pants. His gyrating dance moves and sex appeal electrified young audiences and earned him the nickname Elvis the Pelvis. Ed Sullivan initially banned Elvis from his popular Sunday night TV show over concerns about his suggestive dancing. Elvis's newfound fame came with a high price as constant touring and screaming crowds took a toll. Years later, he would refer to the period after the release of Blue Suede Shoes as rock and roll's cruelest test. But there's no denying the song's place in igniting the youth culture explosion of the late 1950s. Carl Perkins was inspired to write Blue Suede Shoes after an incident at one of his early shows. While performing at a dance hall, he overheard a teenager exclaim to his date, "Don't step on my suedes." Perkins thought the phrase had a good country music ring to it and jotted the line down to work into a song later. The story told in the song is based on Perkins' childhood experience being poor and not being able to afford nice new shoes. In the lyrics, he imagines borrowing shoes from a friend and pleading with his girl not to scuff them up. Perkins recorded his original version at Sun Records, released in December 1955. The mournful guitar and slower tempo gave it an almost bluesy feel. But Perkins' version was quickly overshadowed once Elvis's cover version came out a few weeks later. Perkins never harbored any ill will, knowing Elvis's take would bring more attention to his songwriting. Elvis and Perkins later became close friends and mutual admirers of each other's work. They even jokingly referred to each other as Blue Suede Brothers. In 1956, Perkins' career was derailed after he was badly injured in a car accident. While Perkins recovered in the hospital, Elvis scored more hits and took over as the king of rock and roll. Over the years, Blue Suede Shoes has become one of the most instantly recognizable and influential songs in rock history. It is considered one of the first true rock and roll records with its driving beat and catchy hook. The song proved that country music could be successfully blended with R&B to attract both black and white audiences. It showed how songs could be vehicles for expressing teen culture and lifestyle. And Elvis demonstrated how music could be used to personify youthful sexuality and attitude. Blue Suede Shoes also represented the new economic power of teenagers who would rush out to buy the latest records and fashions. Decades later, a character reference to shiny blue suede shoes still conjures up images of classic 50s rock and roll. Elvis only performed the song occasionally in his later Las Vegas years, but it always thrilled the crowd. Other famous artists who have covered Blue Suede Shoes range from Buddy Holly to John Lennon. The song has appeared everywhere from movies like Forrest Gump to TV ads for Blue Suede Shoes. It even inspired a genre parody song called Don't Step on My Blue Suede Moose by the Muppets. In the mid-50s, both Elvis and Carl Perkins had their sights set on making music history with Blue Suede Shoes. And while their backgrounds were very different, they both tapped into the same new musical and cultural phenomenon. Elvis came from dirt-poor rural Mississippi, while Perkins grew up the son of sharecroppers in Tennessee. Perkins learned guitar at a young age, captivated by the Grand Ole Opry stars he listened to on the radio. Elvis soaked up the gospel, country, and rhythm and blues sounds he heard around Memphis. But both men sensed conventional country music didn't fully speak to the experience of their generation. Elvis and Perkins admired blues pioneers who sang frankly about life and relationships, and they gravitated to music that had a greater sense of urgency and energy. When Elvis walked into Sun Records, he was determined to cut loose from his conventional tracks. And when Perkins wrote Blue Suede Shoes, he crafted lyrics any teenager could relate to. At heart, both singers identified most closely with oppressed groups like poor rural Southerners and African Americans. They took the experience of feeling looked down upon and channeled it into their early rebellion-fueled recordings. Elvis and Perkins also shared the experience of personal loss that influenced their music. Elvis had a twin brother Jesse who died at birth, which haunted him his whole life. Perkins' father died when he was a teenager, forcing him to take jobs to help his family. Both men knew poverty and struggle firsthand, which gave their music an authenticity. When Elvis and Perkins joined forces at Sun Records, they were able to fuse white and black musical worlds. Elvis's version of Blue Suede Shoes became an anthem for stepping out musically and culturally. Perkins' original take showed he could connect with young crowds as well as anyone. Together, their recordings of Blue Suede Shoes formed a Rosetta Stone for rock and roll music. Sam Phillips, the owner of Sun Records, deserved credit for recognizing Elvis and Perkins' talents. He saw beyond their poor backgrounds to their potential impact on popular music. Phillips was a pioneer for recording African American artists and wanted to break down racial barriers. He believed talented young Southern musicians could make widely popular music rooted in black traditions. So Phillips provided Elvis, Perkins, and Johnny Cash with opportunities when no one else would. He fostered an environment where they could experiment and push boundaries. Phillips Studios allowed black and white musicians to influence each other in groundbreaking ways. This open musical exchange led directly to the game-changing Sun recordings like Blue Suede Shoes. Neither Elvis nor Perkins fully realized their cultural impact at the time, but their fusion music became the torch that lit rock and roll's revolution. This musical revolution soon expanded beyond music to movies, fashion, and attitude. When Elvis sang, well, it's 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready, now go, cat, go, a new generation answered the call. Teenagers now had their own music, their own look, their own vernacular, their own space. Elvis and Perkins showed how this new youth subculture could be commercially powerful. Record labels, radio stations, and promoters now saw young people as a target market. 1956 became year 1 for the economic emergence of American teenagers. And Blue Suede Shoes was their declaration of independence with its own style, slang, and spirit. Overnight, parents and authority figures were forced to contend with this newfound sense of teenage autonomy. Elvis and Perkins presented an image of confident, working-class rebels that was alluring but threatening. Their music gave teenagers an intoxicating taste of freedom from rigid social norms. Elvis's gyrations and Perkins' sneer carried a charge of youthful sexuality and aggression. Middle-class America looked on them as unsavory characters who stirred up teenage passions, but attempts to suppress them only strengthened their anti-authoritarian appeal. This combination of commercial success and controversy was new. Now rebellious figures like Elvis and Perkins became role models for young people. Blue Suede Shoes emerged as the young generation's declaration of values. Choosing self-expression over conformity, freedom over tradition, instinct over propriety. Elvis and Perkins lived out these ideals by following their musical passions wherever they led. Their collaboration on Blue Suede Shoes created sparks that ignited a cultural firestorm. And the impact still echoes today whenever those opening guitar chords are heard.